Thanks very much, Kieran O'Donnell. And firstly, can I thank the members of the Rural Independent Group for bringing this motion to the House. It's very well intentioned, but will be opposing the motion as it fails to recognise the progress being undertaken to encourage growth and development in rural Ireland, consistent with our national planning policies and the substantial public investment underpinning it. I want to ensure, Deputies, that this government plan is working and we are committed to achieving success to benefit rural areas across the country. And I just deal with the points, and just to go through them, right. Minister O'Brien, my colleague here, was here before me, and the government supports the continued of housing in rural areas and rural development. And if you look at the stats from the CSO, the number of rural houses that were completed went up on 2002 and 2001. So it was 5,552 last year. The previous year was 4,736. That's 786 of an increase. So we support. We're in the process of completing updated rural housing guidelines, planning guidelines. And we want to ensure that they are consistent with current requirements of legislation at national and EU level in respective areas related to rural housing, such as environmental protection, the Gaeltacht and the climate action. We're looking at the guidelines to continue to provide for new housing in rural areas and support development of rural communities. Can I touch on a number of points that were raised? Log cabins. There's nothing in the national policy that does not dictate the type of materials, and I know it's come up repeatedly for the use of housing, and there's no prohibition in the use of timber construction from a planning perspective. So with the overall planning permission proposal, planning permission being saturated with regard to national, regional and local policy, planning policy. Now, I know the point that Deputy O'Callaghan raised in respect of the that there was an expert in terms of the timbered leaf, and I've no doubt Deputy Richard O'Donnell will probably know a lot more technically, but it's something we will look at. What's the position there? The other issues really were I want to, I suppose, update the Ministers, O'Brien, is the Creek Conagh scheme, and we expect we'll be issuing a revised circular today, which is basically 30,000. So we'll now go to 50,000 if it's vacant for more than 2 years, and going up to 70,000 if it's derelict, built pre-2007, and that applies in rural areas. There is no location in Ireland that doesn't apply to, and I think that's extremely important. And I want to take on board as well the points maybe that he hasn't remained here, Deputy Paul Murphy. We'll fundamentally disagree with Deputy. Deputy Murphy is ideologically driven. He's not based on the practicalities of building houses. The state can't do everything. And effectively he's come up with basically he's like the guy who wants to kick the tyre. Every dog that goes by, he wants to give it a kick, or he wants to kick every tyre. The bottom line is that we have to work in a balanced way to get housing built. The state needs to build houses, which we've done, over 10,000 last year. The private sector need to build. The AHBs need to be involved. And if you ask anyone that's out there, will they be concerned who actually built their social house? They will not. They want the house, and we need to get houses built quickly. So it's ideologically driven. Effectively, the state does everything, the private sector has no role. And we've basically have brought in the measures on the development levies being suspended for a year. Same with water charges. They apply to first-time, they apply to rural once-off houses as well. So that should bring down the cost, and I think that's hugely important. Can I just take up a couple of points that Deputy Kenny made? The legacy estate, in terms of, he spoke about water schemes there, treatment plants, maybe he'll come back to us on that. Minister O'Brien is looking at the applications from the various local authorities and wastewater treatment plans for system for individual villages. He's giving that priority at the moment. The Deputy Cannon also made reference to Deputy McNamara reference to Bord Pleanála. I can't comment on individual cases, but we are bringing in through the planning bill defined timelines in terms of decisions to be made by Bord Pleanála. And from my own perspective, we want people to be able to build once-off rural houses. We want them to be able to be part of the fabric of rural Ireland, and it's hugely important that we continue to get that in terms of a balanced basis correctly. The National Planning Framework objectives, together with previous 2005, enables planning authorities which are in situ to continue to prepare and adopt development plans, policies for once-off houses in rural areas. So last year, over 5,500 once-off rural houses were completed. That's an increase of 16% in last year. And the government is also providing significant investment in rural Ireland, including 215 projects worth of £12,542 million under Rural Regeneration Development or RDF, and over 149 through the Town and Village Renewal Scheme since 2016. These investment programmes and others align with our rural future and are transforming rural communities with new infrastructure, public means for our citizens. And if I could just make reference, if you're someone with a rural house, you qualify for the Help to Buy scheme if it's your first home, and that's often that's hugely important. And that's, in many cases, a deposit for young people across the range of. So it applies. We want to see people living in rural Ireland, but we obviously want it very much in a sustainable way. We want to see the local authorities involved in building houses as well, but we also want that in rural Ireland that the Creek Coney scheme will be taken up in abundance, where young people will purchase, or farmers' children, if there's derelict houses, that they effectively apply under the Creek Coney scheme to bring them back into life. And in many cases, even, and people will know in terms of planning, in many cases people are buying older houses to enhance them for planning purposes. And that's 50,000 and an extra 20,000 for if it's vacant for more than 2 years, and 50,000 if it's derelict. The house only needs now to be built pre-2007. We want to see those being brought back for rental purposes as well. And you know, people speak about, so that's something that has to be looked at in abundance. Now, can I take up Deputy O'Donnell's point? He put a rein on most councillors, public representatives, builders are doing their job in what they believe to be the best possible fashion. Yeah, there are cowboys in every profession. But I'd hate to have a situation whereby that it's put out there that councillors, in terms of zoning decisions, politicians here in Leinster House and both Dáil and Shannon, are not doing their job in the proper way. And we're bringing in two taxes, the residential land zone tax, which is legislation is in, the land sharing tax, and the residential zone tax. Can I put it on record here? We are conscious of the impact that's having on active farmers in areas. We want to ensure that active farmers can continue in areas. The teaching is on record that we will look to ensure that any difficulties that are arising here in terms of farmers, active farmers, to put forward the case that they want their land dezoned. We want to keep active farmers farming. And that's very much in keeping our team with rural Ireland. Yes, do we want to have, Deputy O'Callaghan made reference about proper oversight. Absolutely. But can I make a point in terms of the measures we put in place, the activation measures, development levies being suspended, water charges suspended, the local authority affordable housing scheme. They're all to ensure that private builders can build houses at a rate that are affordable to purchasers. And really, what I want really is, I commend our counter motion to the House. I understand the well intentions of the Rural Independent Group, but we will not be accepting their motion here today, in that we feel we've made significant progress which hasn't been acknowledged in their motion, and we've put forward our own counter motion.